Welcome to Lost in the Groove. This is a place where we talk shit for an hour. Hopefully, we don't bore you to death. That's one of our goals. Today, we're going to be talking about diversity, and first thing that comes to my mind is me. You see, you probably can't see me right now because we're doing podcasting. But if there was video, you probably could see me. But I have this problem where a lot of people think I'm Hispanic. Maybe it's my skin color or whether it's the way that I look. So I get people that will bump into me and just be like, amigo, ¿cómo estás? And I've gotten to the point with all my irritability, I just look back at the person and I'm just like, like, do you speak Arabic? Hello? Like, I'm not Hispanic. I'm Middle Eastern. I am Arabic. Can you tell the difference? No, they cannot tell the difference. I'm done my ranting. That is my interpretation of diversity for today. Take it as you like. I don't give a fuck.
Dang, I never would have thought that, but now that you bring it up, you do kind of look Hispanic.
No, not you. No, get the fuck out of here. No, get out of here. Get out of here.
Just a little bit, though.
See, this is the problem.
Do you speak any Spanish at all?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I know some curse words.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah, and I know how to say, por favor, uno momento, uno momento, por favor. That's all I know.
That's good. As you know, I work in the fashion district in Santi Alley.
Yes.
And pretty much everywhere here is just like the Hispanic culture. So I
love Santi Alley.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I can hear it.
Have to come say hi to you next time I'm there. I'm there a lot for getting materials.
All right. Yeah, for sure. I'm on Wall Street. Oops, I probably shouldn't be saying that in the podcast. But
all right, any of you that are stalking Henry, we know who you are now, okay? We know who you are.
Yeah, that's a great place. I love how
Eli? Honey, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Yeah, the culture here is like Hispanic, so it's like forcing me to learn to speak Spanish because very little people here speak English. But it's been pretty cool. I'm starting to catch on. I had my first somewhat conversation in Spanish the other day, and so I was stoked because I'm yeah, this Duolingo app's paying off.
Yeah.
But then if you go up a little further towards the fabric district, it's a lot of old Armenian men and stuff too.
Oh,
so
really?
A mix of yeah, totally. If you get outside of so there's Santi Alley, the alley where it's all the fashion stuff and little gadgets and things like that. And the toy district too is a lot of Mexican shop owners and stuff. But then if you go into the actual fabric district, it's a lot of Armenian and Middle Eastern shop owners.
When Karissa, you were you said you worked in the film industry. Did you ever go through the fashion district and ever run into kind of like what Eli was saying with the different type of people?
A lot of history with the fashion district. I've been out here for a long time. I used to, one of the things that, there's so many different stories to tell there. For a while, knockoff makeup palettes were a big story down there. That's also where I found some of my first stainless steel palettes and tools and different things like that. And then I've always been fascinated with evening gowns and big, beautiful formal gowns and stuff. They have just tons of them down there. Not just for quinceañeras, but I worked with this one lady. She owned a formal dress shop down there. They have those big dresses and they just come in a million different colors and whatever. She was from South Korea. So I know that there's Korean shop owners that live down there as well. But Santi Alley, was kind of up for grabs in the 40s after they kicked out a lot of Japanese people. And there was a lot of room for a lot of other people to come in and do things. And then, I mean, I don't really know the whole history of it, but it's definitely one of the things that somebody should see if they come into Los Angeles. Like, you get like a real feeling for it. And it's one of the more affordable things that you can do when you come to Los Angeles too. Like, you can get some street food. I could get some street food that was like affordable and actually like buy a couple things for myself.
Of course, like, you need to know where the munchies are. I mean, hello. Like, you're going out in California, you know, like, for a lot of these poor, unfortunate people, weed's still illegal. They come from, you know, they come out here, you know, they're frat boys. They want to get their wiggles on or whatever the fucking shit they call it these days. And, you know, they go get, like, the, you know, open tacos, you know, they spend, like, $12 and, like, in LA, and they take, like, a selfie, and, like, they post it on Instagram being, like, so cool and all. And, I mean, like, I kind of, you know, like, get it. Like, it's kind of like the added point. I mean, I'm from the East Coast, and I'll tell you, on the East Coast in New York, a lot of people spend most of their time in Manhattan. But there's a lot of the city like Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, Staten Island. There's a lot of really beautiful places that have a lot of rich, you know, history, diversity, a lot of really cultures coming together. Like, straight off the bat, Irish culture, Russian culture, Chinese culture. You know, there's that big kind of melting pot. I think one of the biggest problems with diversity is we're so used to being in a diverse environment where, like, your neighbor's Japanese, you know, you're the person right across from you is Filipino, the person, like, that you work with is Hispanic. But people forget, not that long ago, that did not exist. There was a time where you would go to a workplace and there was just white people, white men. That was it. That's all you worked with.
Well, in white collar situations, yeah. But a lot of the time, even in those situations, once they had to have laborers that were like physical laborers, they would still hire people of color.
Yeah. And then in the Midwest,
Like,
there's, you know, not a whole lot of diversity.
well,
They
except in
taught-
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, more like suburb Midwest where I came from. We didn't have a lot of diversity. So they made a huge point of educating us on diversity because we didn't have experiences with diversity, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But, that's a huge point that, like, you know, they were still there. They just maybe weren't being noticed because they're more like doing the hard labor.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, even now it's like you have in the film. So like I do production design, art direction, and like fabrication, and there's a lot of crossover where it's like there's a lot of parts of film industry, like seeing like aspects of the painting and fabricating portions that are still like largely like older like Mexican American men. And it's kind of been that way for a long time because like a lot of the time you have these higher ups, there are these white people who hire labor, and like this is not just film industry, that's like anything. Like you look at like any sort of like contracting work, like construction work, anything like that, where it's like you do have the people who have the more the like positions of power who are like the rich white dudes, and then you have all the people that they hire are people who are like, you know, are a more diverse background. But like part of that is because I think that they feel like they can, I don't know, there's so many issues that go into like just like labor issues when it comes to like how people get hired and how people get taken advantage of from different backgrounds as well.
Yeah. I mean, Henry, what do you like from your own experience? Because I mean, I have like my own experience. Like, what's your thoughts on this?
Is Henry here?
Henry is here. He might be frozen.
He might be frozen. Wait, hold on.
His picture looks frozen.
Yes, his picture does look frozen. We'll find out. We'll find that in a second. Let me see. Okay, he said, gotta restart my laptop. It's freezing. Okay.
Looks so.
Yeah, it's good now. That was weird. Like, I could hear you guys speaking, but everyone was frozen. I was just like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's like an episode. Yeah, it's like an episode right out of Superman.
I think didn't Mercury go into retrograde or something like that?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something.
No, seriously, Henry. Like, what is a like? You know, this is my thoughts on like diversity today. What's your thoughts on this?
On what?
On how we're so used to diversity.
Well, I think it just depends on where you're at, because I mean, growing up in Utah, Utah is not diverse. It's just straight up white Mormon culture out there, unless you're in like downtown Salt Lake City. And so, I mean, places like that, it's like it's not much diverse. But moving to California, it's like the complete opposite of that, where it's just like everyone's diverse and from somewhere different. Moving here was my first time meeting someone from what's that called? Singapore.
Cool.
They're like I'm gonna like butcher this like race. I think it's like Magno. Man, I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but
Myanmar?
Mongolian. What the heck am I talking? My,
Mongolian?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I have a friend who's Mongolian. Singapore is a cool place.
I always bother the Mongolians. Every single Mongolian I've ever met, the first thing I always ask them is, "Can you throat sing for me?" And they're like, "Oh God, one of these fucking bitches again." God damn it. That's just what I do.
Is that like a common thing that they do, is throat
Yeah.
sing?
Yeah. Mongolian throat singing is a part of Mongolian culture. They have very interesting culture. Like
They do, yeah. They're warrior culture too.
Yeah, like they have they're called they have family rituals. They'll literally sit out in the woods and like light a fire, like a bonfire, and they'll all like sing and make food. And it's like you know, it's part of their heritage. It's just, do you know, like, if we could understand that we have been on this planet as, like, you know, the fucking meat bags we've been, it's been like over about 200,000 years. And, like, seriously, look how far we've gotten, to the point where, like, there's so much. There's too much. There's so much. Oh my God. There's like a bajillion languages, a bajillion different kind of people. It's like,
it's true.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
8 billion people. 8 billion people on this planet.
Yeah,
Can I jump in and say something about diversity at a second when there's a moment?
Yes.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Flag football league I play in, and this girl, she was from the Philippines, and she's like on the phone speaking with one of her friends, and it was just like some crazy language I had never heard before. And I was like, yo, what? Like, what were you just saying? And she thought I was like making fun of her at first. I'm like, no, like I've never heard anything like that. And it's like it's a type of language from the Philippines, but in the Philippines they have like, I didn't know this either, they have like over 1,000 islands, and each island they have their own like dialect. So I was like, what? Yeah, it was so cool to see that.
That's cool.
Oh, I thought Eli wanted to say something before.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm not saying
so
anything.
like
Keeping quiet.
so I was gonna say, like, in terms of like, so like growing up and where we grow up, and like I think how that like informs how we see diversity and how we see like what diversity being normalized. Like I grew up in Chicago, like the city proper, not the suburbs. I grew up in a neighborhood that had that was like very diverse, very little like Middle Eastern, Indian, like Nigerian, Korean, and then also like, you know, Black and Latino, and like just like everybody. It had everybody in it. And then some of the like old weirdos that were like my parents' ilk. And like it was cool because I got to go back there this past week. I was in Chicago and I brought my partner there. And it was cool kind of going back and seeing the parts of the city that haven't changed and haven't been like totally like wiped out from like, you know, more modern gentrification and corporate gentrification and stuff. Cause there's a lot that's really holding strong and it's very cool. But like my grade school was just like a public grade school and we had 22 different language groups in it. So like it was the norm to see people from all over the world. And then my high school was like 50% Latino and then like had like everybody else in the other percent. And it was just like that's kind of just how it was growing up in Chicago if you were not like a rich kid. And so like that's kind of your basis to going to things. And my first time experiencing like a kind of somewhat homogenous culture was like going to college, like going to art school and being like, oh wow, this is like more white people than I've ever seen in my life. Like it was kind of an interesting thing to come from that perspective versus being like, oh, there's a lot of people suddenly, to being like, wow, this is the first time experiencing there being like more of like a monoculture. But like I think it's really important to have exposure to that. And I think that what's cool is like we have like not everybody gets to experience that like 101 or where they grow up and everything, but now that we have like so many different social media platforms that allow you to just like see people from all over the world, like you get exposure to different cultures. Like my partner and I, like we spent like 45 minutes watching just these videos of people from like just like this very, very rural town in Africa and just like watching how they were living and like just they're making like TikTok videos and stuff. It was just so cool because it's something that's like completely out of our wheelhouse of understanding, but it's also like very like beautiful and like kind of familiar in this larger like human sense. But I think that it's cool now that we can access that kind of like, you know, being able to see that stuff from from the internet.
I mean, I mentioned this before. I was raised religious, and I was raised Sephardic. Sephardic is means that we're Spaniard. You know, when the Second Temple was destroyed, a lot of Jews, they went to Spain, which is where my family went to. And we have a very different culture than other type of Jews. And I remember when I was in high school, the first time I went to away high school, I was dormitorying there. There was a synagogue there that was, you know, the other group, the European Jewish group. And I got to a point where I couldn't handle it. And I remember I went to the Sephardic synagogue that was down the street. And the second I walked through those doors, I felt at peace. Because in a way, like, it was, you know, kind of like the opposite of what Eli was saying, where it was my culture. It was like something that I could relate with and understand. And I just, like, remember that experience. And every single time, like, I've had to, like, explain to somebody my culture. And they said to me, they were like, whoa, that's like 800 years of history. I'm like, dude, no, that's 2,000 years of history. It's something that I have that my father gave me. It's an amazing gift. There's another thing about diversity, which is it's a gift given by your parents. Being Irish or German, or being Egyptian or Kenyan, or being Chinese or Russian. That's your culture. That's your way of diversifying with other people around you.
But I think also the choices that your family makes in terms of like where they live and like who they surround themselves with too, because you can be from like you can be like a white have like a white background and then like be around like your parents can make the choice to like live in a place that's either like totally white or a place that's like more diverse and has like a lot of other things. So you're seeing that and being exposed to that variance like at a younger age, or like white or any culture obviously, but like, you know, you can be like of one persuasion and then like, or like a, you know, background and then like be exposed to it or not be exposed to it. So it's like, it's more than just like what you are born as, but it's also like what you're exposed to, I think.
Yeah, I can't help but agree because a lot of my train of thought was like, okay, so I wasn't around a whole lot of diversity, like a little bit, you know, like, and my dance class was downtown, so I'd get kind of out of my bubble. But I think that what was really important was a lot of things that were like shown to me and things that were like printed or publicized or different stuff like that. Like I watched Sesame Street a lot and it had diversity in it.
Totally.
So that was like, I needed the Sesame Street as a child.
It was
Yeah, I
great
was
for all of us.
like I lived around like African American people up until like age 6, like with my family, and then my dad found like a new girlfriend whose family is from Utah, and I like ended up moving with him and her whole family, or like her family was Thai, Laotian,
That's
and then
cool.
like other members, like her sister at the time was married to an Italian, so there's like Italian people in that family. And then like her brother was married to Native American and Hispanic. So as like growing up, I got to experience like a lot of culture just within that one family, and like eat all sorts of like different types of food. Like pho is like one of my favorite things to eat now. And thank God there's like a ton of them here, because a ton of places to eat pho here, because I don't know how to make it. But yeah, the Italian, like grandma, she used to make like spaghetti and meatballs, and like it's real authentic Italian food. So I'd say that was like pretty cool growing up.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could tell you we have this thing in my family, which is it's called Moroccan fish. Each of us, like each of my siblings, we've all learned the recipe from my father from memory, and it's kind of like the special thing to make. And it's kind of interesting because when you think about food is culture. Food is it is diversified over time. I mean, come on, we got Panda Express honey. Like that ain't real Chinese food. That's American food, but it's American Chinese. And like people know that. Like people know the difference between it. Like you can literally see. Put it simple like this. Fuck it. Diversity is not a thing. It's an evolution. It's an evolution of society. Hey, I said it. Woo! All right, I'm done. All right, I'll see you later, guys.
Going back to that Panda Express thing, did you know that fortune cookies are actually an American thing?
Yes.
Americans made that up.
Yeah, and the fortunes haven't been very good to me recently, so we're on a little break currently at the moment. Yeah.
I've got some good ones. I got one here that says make time for your passions. I feel like I really needed that one because I just freaking working a bunch. But yeah, I'm back in the mix and creating. So shout out to the Americans for the fortune cookies.
God bless you. Yeah. Well,
What is that dish you were talking about, the
So yeah. So Moroccan. So where I come from, and where my family comes from in Morocco, which is Casablanca, there are two variations of this type of fish that was served Friday night for Sabbath, and one was fried. It's fried backwards, so you batter it in flour, and then you dip it in egg, and then you fry it. And then there's a sauce that you use, which I think it's tamir or tamour. It's basically cumin and oil, and you just serve the fish. It's usually like whitings, and then you serve it with the sauce. Like that's the one variation. The other variation, which is like a sabal. It's like it's kind of like in a dish where it's layered. It's kind of like a layered. So you have layers of potatoes, olives, peppers, tomatoes, the fish. There's cilantro, and then there's a sauce you put over. And the secret to Moroccan fish is you have to cook it slowly.
Okay.
Very slow. This is the problem with Moroccans. This is why, like, anybody that has problems with Arabic people being slow. Okay, listen to me, all right? We were raised since the day that we were in goddamn diapers, okay? Hey, it's 10 o'clock. We'll be there, and don't worry. We show up 3 hours late. That's how we show up to things. Flights, well, don't worry, we'll get there. Rushing through the gate, we missed the flight. All right, we take the next flight. Every flight was late. And it's hard for me, because like I gotta get used to not being late for flights. Because it's like in my DNA. Oh my God. Wow.
Flights and doctor's appointments. You know, appointments for your dog or your cat. Those are gonna have to be on time for because stuff will close. You know, got an appointment at like 2, place closes at like 4. You're fucked.
You gotta prioritize.
I've had the fish before. Your brother's made it for me.
He makes it really well.
Yeah, your brother makes it very well. And he does it. He does it with a big smile on his face the whole time. You know, as he's cooking and as he's sharing it with people, he's very, very, very happy. He has a huge smile on his face.
Our culture, Moroccan. If anybody like ever has a chance to meet Moroccan people, I mean, first of all, I could say like we're very warm, loving people. We're raised family, meaning people that you're family with. You're always there. You know, you come together, you eat together, you sing together, you cry together. We believe in unity, and we kind of find that in food. It's a part of our culture, the way that we cook, the way we teach our children how to cook. I'm very blessed to be a part of you know, that culture. So I'm not going to cry. I'm going to hold back a tear.
Don't do that. Do you feel that, like, speaking on diversity, you feel like food, like, it's something that brings people together often? Because if you think about it, it's just like Thanksgiving, people come together to eat. I know a lot of cultures, it's big to like for their family to eat at a dinner table. I'm not so sure about like American culture as much, but me growing up, like our family would like eat at the table, and it was like you weren't allowed to go eat anywhere else at times. Is that kind of like what the Arabic culture is like in a sense? Like,
Yeah. We always, and it's actually funny, we actually have our way of how we serve food. So in Morocco, the way that when you're serving appetizers, you always put them in front of your guests with bread. You don't hide them. They're always in front of you. When you serve main dishes, you bring the bowl to the person or the plate, and you serve them directly over. The way that you pour, you cannot pour to the top. There's a certain amount you can pour. Who gets served first? It may seem like, okay, this is a bunch of dumbass rules, but the thing is like, to us, it's a way of showing a certain type of respect. Like, that's why, like, when people look at South Korean culture, I can understand it. We have the same thing in Arabic culture. Gestures, the way you do certain things, the way you eat, the way you pour. Yeah, it's a very big part of our culture, especially food. Same thing with, I would say the same thing with Asian culture. It's kind of similar to Middle Eastern and Arab culture.
yeah. How about you, Karissa?
Yeah, I mean, like earlier when you were talking about customs that you have within your culture, we went to church. You know, we go to church every Sunday, especially when I was younger. And what I liked about church every Sunday was that I got to be with my grandma. And I just hang out with grandma like the whole Sunday, you know, and then afterwards we go to the Village Inn, which is like the basic pancake place of town. And, you know, I mean, there was like 3 different breakfast places that we kind of like rotate around, but, you know, grandma would buy the family breakfast. And I remember when grandma quit smoking, so we didn't sit in the smoking section anymore. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we started to get like more relaxed. My parents, very much so. They let go of a lot of their things, but you know, when it was time to like get formal, we had more rules and things like that. But you know, I mean, not very strict. Not a lot of rules growing up in suburban life.
Damn. It's a story of Iowa. Part 1. 14 chapters.
Well, one thing that I wanted to bring up was that you know, Iowa just being like the suburbs, like where I grew up, they when I was in like junior high, the U.S. government sent out refugees, hundreds, thousands. I'm not really sure, but we had tons of refugees come. You know, families, little kids. So my mother was affected by it because she's a teacher. But it's different, you know, because all of a sudden there's a burst of people in the community that speak a whole other language. And I feel these people were welcomed and they're like brought to a place where it's like kind of easy to survive. And I don't know if they were like accustomed to like, you know, the freezing cold weather or whatever, but they seem to do fine with it. I think if I came to Iowa, I would be like, oh shit, like it's so cold. Where they transplanted me to. But I remember like, you know, it was just like something we'd never heard before. Like my one friend Mirza, he was Bosnian. Yeah, I'll just talk about people. he told me that he lived in a car in Germany for like 2 or 3 years with his mother before his parents like, you know, somehow got moved to Des Moines, Iowa. Johnston, Iowa. Actually.
Oh my god.
There were tons of kids, just tons of them, and then parents as well.
I just put it.
What was crazy was that they had moved people from countries that were within war with one another. So they had moved Bosnian people and Syrian people, you know, all kinds of different people who like hated each other, like into Des Moines, Iowa, and like we,
yeah,
you know,
we had that too in Chicago. Yeah, we had that too in Chicago.
Yeah, we were kids. Yeah. So we didn't know anything about the news or like war or whatever. So like we were like, wait, what happened? People told us, like, well, they killed my family. I'm like, what?
And you had like kids in international gangs too, like not just like the ones that you hear about. Yeah. Huh? And you had kids like we did at least, we had kids in like different gangs, not like the gangs you hear about normally, but like gangs in like from different parts of like different countries, gangs that you hadn't necessarily heard of, and like they're all kind of coexisting, like all these kids from different backgrounds, different like you know, different families, different values, different perspectives, different political things. Because same age, like we're like the same age. So this was like early to mid 90s when you had these kids that were like coming from all these like war like Bosnia Herzegovina and that kind of area where it's like you had like like their families might have been fighting with each other, and then they're over here and they have to sit in math class together. Yeah, it's wild.
I mean, for example, like in New York. Oh, sorry, Henry.
I'm just curious, like, so did they ever bring like that from like Bosnia and Syria to like Ohio and Chicago? Were they like fighting and beating each other up and trying to kill each other out?
They got stabbed.
There was
in our high school, kid stabbed another kid in the high school. There was like blood on the floor. I've told David this story before because it's just like you picture your little Midwest high school, and then all of a sudden there's these two different types of kids, you know, just like stabbing each other, and none of us have any idea why. We're just like, what the fuck happened? And same with the counselors. Like, they're like, okay. they're like, so there's a war between these two countries, and now it's coming into our school, and like, what do we even do? You know? So sorry, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, in New York. I mean, I wasn't like, you know, I was born in the late 90s. We had a lot of Russians. So after the Soviet Union fell, a lot of Russians fled the USSR, and they came to Connecticut, New York, Manchester, Maine, one of the biggest problems that started happening was the wars. You know, kind of when Giuliani kind of came in and started cleaning up the city, and they got the new governor in. The biggest problem was you had these Russians coming in, and then one worked for this oligarch and the other one worked for that oligarch, and kind of the same problem. You had these families fighting with each other. Then they're getting in fights with the Italians. The Italians are fighting with them. It was just, it was chaos.
And we had some of that, and then we also had a lot of Orthodox Jews in the neighborhood, and we had a lot of Muslims in the neighborhood. So there was a lot of tension during aspects of that as well, when there were issues like in the Middle East happening, and like issues surrounding Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So you had that, and then we had like a resurgence of Nazis too. So there was like a couple Jewish kids that got shot and killed, or like at least maimed seriously, like towards like the turn of like 2000. But like we did definitely have some, because we had I remember there was one point where like I was in like 5th grade, and we had kids. I had like classmate who was in Latin Kings, a kid who was in Gangster Disciples, and a kid who was in Asian Blood, and we were all just hanging out in the same like 6th grade, 5th grade class, and it was wild because it's like there's definitely were things that would happen outside of it. Like I do remember one kid's like older sibling was killed, and they had to transfer and stuff. But like you also have a lot of like, you have a surprising amount of just like, at least during the school period, we had a surprising amount of like peace. Like there wasn't that much fighting considering how many different backgrounds there were, because there was like 22 different language groups, and so like 22 different kind of like background origin areas, and there could have been like, it was called Daniel Boone Elementary School, and like for like how diverse it was, I feel like, and how much there was like a lot of tension between a lot of different countries that were in the same classes together, we had a surprising amount of like kind of peace and integration, like not exclusively, but somewhat. And then in my high school, it was like kind of similar, but then there was a kid that was killed for, gang related issues like the year before, like the summer before I started going to high school there. So you have like you have some aspects of it where it's like everybody kind of coexists and just makes the choice to coexist. And then you have other things that sometimes it just comes to a breaking point, and then there's like some crazy shit that happens. Like I was like 10 or 11, and like I remember I was living with my mom, and like we lived in like West Rogers Park, and it was so sort of the outskirts of that not outskirts, but it was like the edge of that neighborhood, like and we had like a lot of people from all different areas, but it was largely like Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, and then like Eastern European, and then like some Middle Eastern. So we were kind of more in that section of it at that point. Like we moved like 14 times before I was 9, so I got to live in so many different little pockets. But like during this period, we were like we were living there. I remember just like it was like summertime. My mom and I were like watching some like late black and white movie, like 11 or 12 in the like at night. And suddenly we kind of like hear some commotion, and like the light is kind of weird. So like run to the like windows, and like someone had like blown up a car. There was like a car bomb. Like no one was injured, and it got put out and everything, but it was in front of like this like Russian, it seemed very much like Russian mafia kind of vibe. Like it was in front of that household where there were just multiple different families, multiple different like, kind of like things going on constantly. And then somebody pissed somebody else off, and there was a car that was on fire. Like, and that was just kind of, you're like, oh, it's not like it's par for the course, but it is kind of just like, like that you kind of accept it.
Yeah. I mean, I lived in Israel for a few years, and being from the environment that I grew up in, there was a lot of animosity on both sides. And
right.
One of my experiences in Israel was I met Palestinians, and they were wonderful people. They were fun. I had great times. The issue is that people tend to look at the smaller picture instead of the bigger picture, where you have Israelis and you have Palestinians, which are two incredible people, hardworking. They want to do great for their countries. But the problem is that they always, kind of the biggest problems with diversification to begin with is there's conflict when there's no need for there to be conflict. It's so easy for someone to blame another person for a problem. But it's so hard for us to admit, you know what, we made a mistake. So why don't we try to work together so we can correct it? We have such a difficult time doing that.
But is that a problem, or is that just one of the things, like a par for the course kind of situation? Like, I don't think it's a problem with diversity. It's just it's a thing that it's like a issue it's something that needs to be resolved.
Yes.
So I feel like problem's like the wrong word, because it implies that like we should have diversity if we have these issues. But I feel like these issues are very, like, they make us understand things more by having to deal with them and having to figure out how to create like a peaceful environment from that. Like, I think, like, with my experience with my grade school, like what helped a lot was we had a lot of like teachers who were from different countries as well. So it wasn't just like, oh, all these kids are here suddenly in this, like, you know, this very like homogenous neighborhood in any direction. It was like you had, like, you know, my second grade teacher was from Nigeria, like, and she was awesome. And like, you know, but you had that throughout, where you had like, you know, you had a fair amount of like, you know, American teachers, like white American teachers. And then you had like people from just all different kinds of backgrounds. And it was cool because, like, I think the kids were also like, oh, we're not just suddenly in this like homogenous neighborhood. We're not like, you know, we're not in this area where it's like just one thing. There is no just one thing. It was like even block to block, it wasn't just one thing. You had people from all different kinds of like different countries that they had been born in, or their families had been born in.
Yeah, but you know, like one thing that I am curious of is, like, for example, Henry, you've told me before, and we've discussed this before, like, you know, you've bumped into, you know, a bunch of people, you know, from like different backgrounds. Like, from your own experience, like, one, if you can think of any, like when you think of, you know, communities clashing with each other, like, you know, you're talking about how like this fighting and like, you know, this rallying, and I mean, you're all about peace and love, and I love that too. But like, what did they say?
What's funny is I actually used to work on a cruise line where they would just have different contractors come and renovate the cruise lines, and we just like dock it in the Bahamas. And like, there was our group. We just removed and installed new sofa beds into the cruise ships, but then there were other groups that were like engineers from like Germany, and then like other people from Italy, like South America, like literally anywhere you could think of. It was all on this cruise ship. And I was just telling my friend this last night, actually. It was like funny because I went and did that job like 4 times. The very first time, it was literally like everyone versus everyone. Like every different culture was fighting and like just going at each other. There's like one point, like, I am usually about the peace, but it's like, don't get on my bad side. Our group of guys just on that particular cruise ship were just lazy. Like, they didn't come to work. They came because they're like, oh, we're going to the Bahamas and we're getting paid. And so they literally, like, they work a little bit and then just go find a random room and sleep in it. And so we'd have like, our team had 24 guys and there were only 12 dudes working. And our ass while everyone else is like sleeping off somewhere. But yeah, and then you got all these other different contractors just getting pissed because we all got to do our job, but everyone's getting in everyone's way. And like, yeah, that there was one particular day, like, our team was like just off napping, bullshitting. There's only 12 of us, so like we're working our asses off, and some dude, I don't know where he was from, but like, I'm walking, he specifically got in my pathway to like shoulder check me. And I saw him coming, and so I like balled my fist up because I was like just so over the day. And I was like, all right, if this dude shoulder checks me, I'm decking him. And I think he saw my like fist and like moved last minute. But it was just interesting because like that first time, like everyone was against everyone. And then the second time we went there, it was like mellowed. Like no one was really going after each other, but we weren't really like associating with one another at all. We just like get our job done and then go hang out with our groups. until the trip was over. But the third time, it was funny. Like that's when everyone came together and we're like, oh, so you're actually not that bad. Like a lot of people were judging us just because all of the news they hear from America, like things that would be going on in America. So they're like, oh, we thought you guys were like assholes and this and that. And we're like, no, we're pretty chill. Like we're same with you guys. Like we don't know what the hell's going on with our country right now, but like yeah, we're not that bad. And then just like started getting to know each other and like telling them what like America's like, and they're telling us what like Italy's like, and just like exchanging emails and phone numbers. Like, yo, if you're ever in Europe, like let me know. I'll take you to.
I I will say this.
That is true about. Wait, oh, sorry. Go.
I will say this, Henry. This is by far one of the best stories you've told on this podcast ever. Okay, working on a cruise. Come on. Okay, first of all, we're not making this up. Okay, like cruise ship teams, German scientists. Like this needs to be a TV show. Like where's Steve Carroll, man? Fucking A. Like we need. Come on. This is amazing. Amazing.
Holland, America. If you guys remember this, give me a promotion. I need a cruise.
That is true about traveling internationally though too, where it's like there's not a great opinion about like Americans.
No. I mean, Karissa, what are your thoughts on that? Like, for example, like we have our view of, different cultures and ethnicities. I mean, you've been to Europe, you've been around, like, what do you think it's like in other countries? Like for some groups?
One thing that I wanted to say before the whole thing was over is that we talk about diversity, and the word diversity isn't really about race. Like race is just like one example of diversity, and something that is, a big topic right now. When there wasn't as much diversity with race, and we did have a lot of education on diversity with race, but when there wasn't, and everybody was the same race, there was still a lot of diversity amongst people all in the same race. And I'm sure people, of any race can say, there's still a lot of diversity within their own race. You and your brother are very different people, and me and my sister are very different people. Like you have sporty people and people that are more introverted
and kinky and funky and groovy.
Well, and then also totally, and to add to that, like then also like just the whole idea of like subculture, like the whole notion of like subculture, like in Chicago, there's like a lot of different cultures and cultural backgrounds and stuff. But like from a young age, I was like, my parents were old freaks, and they were like very, we didn't have a lot of like culture to speak of other than like counterculture. And then like I kind of pursued that very young, and by the time I was 16, I was like in a band playing shows and stuff like in places I wasn't old enough to play, and did that for like 12 years. And like my culture and like my experience of culture has nothing to do with like a race or country that people are born from or religion or anything. It's like what's weird subverted underground venues do you play in? Like what's the content of what you create? What kind of art are you making? Like what are you saying? Like what's your show like? Like who's going to and that's a cult, like that's like a thing of its own too, because it evolves too. It's like it's that I saw it used to be something that like when you kind of get into chosen cultures, so like chosen subcultures, countercultures, instead of just like also the ones that are like natural backgrounds, I feel like it's a whole different conversation of diversity and how things change and borrow and like or steal from each other.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from my own experience that I've said this before, diversity has has multiple layers, kind of like an onion. And one thing that I kind of found out early on was, I kind of am of a lover of the 70s and, hippies and all of that kind of shit. And the thing that I found out was that all still exists. It's just those baby boomers that all became Republicans and now are politicians. We're not like them. Like, we're a completely different class.
Or they died because they stayed poor.
Yeah. Well,
like my family.
Yeah. But like the version that we have now is kind of live a normal life, be a normal person, but be your own self. Diversify yourself, immerse yourself with cultures, learn new things. That's literally the idea about being open-minded, is you're opening your mind to different experiences and perspectives. There, I did it again. I said perspectives. Yeah.
Well said.
Yes. That got quiet. So, woof. Well, I think we're almost at 8 hour. Anybody want to say anything? Because I got jack shit, honey. I got nothing. I'm like, yeah.
All I was trying to say is that diversity isn't just about race, and I think that
it's an onion. It has layers.
People can don't let that take over all of your thinking when you think about diversity, because don't limit yourself to that, because we're all individuals beyond our races, and we're all individuals within our races as well.
That's true.
Wow.
Yes.
Ooh. Powerful.
Anything's gonna top that.
Henry, what about you? What's your closing statement for today?
I think she's got it.
Eli?
I think that it is important to listen to what everybody's background is to understand it better, so that diversity can be a fluid and beautiful and building thing, rather than something that can be competitive or dangerous.
Wow. Well, that's diversity. It's I like to think of it as a love story. It's one of those things where you get to learn it, you get to see new things, and more importantly, you get to start something you never thought you'd ever do. So with that, we love you, people. I don't know. I'm tired. I'm gonna probably do something about that, but we'll see you next week. Hopefully, who knows? We'll see. All right. Adios.